Welcome to our April webinar. This month we're going to be talking about data and financial management with ZAPP. So we're going to be going over how you can utilize the information we provide on ZAPP to manage artist data and the revenue you collect. So before we even get started, we're going to talk about the pre-application process and thinking about what information you're going to need from your artists before you build your application and go ahead and get started. So these are things like social media handles, past experience, past applications, marketing information, anything you can really think of that you would like to have from your artists as feedback. So what we're going to do to make sure that we receive that information is ensure that those are questions that are asked on our application editor. So down here you have the option to add multiple application questions. As we've talked about before, you have 5 options. The first is a text box. This option just allows artists to basically fill in the blank kind of answers with as many or as few characters as you choose. A checkbox will allow them to choose multiple options. A radio button is a single select only option, so these are often yes or no questions. And then a drop down is a single select as well. These might be more like different booth options, booth areas. That's how we see drop downs used sometimes. And then informational only is just information you want your artist to double check and make sure they're aware of before they go any farther and submit their application. So when we're looking at asking a social media question, you might just want to put in here, you put like a social media, the title is internal use only. We're going to keep it as text, and we're going to just have it as one option because it's going to be a text question, so we don't need to worry too much about the options. And for the question, we might just say, what are your social media handles? Put no character limit so they can enter as many as they want. Check yes, so that you get that answer for every single artist. And for the help link, which is just a little bit of additional help for them if they're not sure about the question, or say they're not aware of how many social media handles you might want, say list all applicable handles: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. And then once we hit create question, we'll have that question. So the really nice thing about putting a lot of your data-driven questions in our custom question section is that these are downloadable in our answers report, which we're going to talk about a little bit after this. So the next thing we want to talk about is actually our new table editor. So you may have noticed now when you click on a category or an application status, you now have this updated table. It looks a little bit different, and depending on how you have it set up, it may show different information. So the nice thing about the table editor is it really allows you to customize how you are organizing and displaying your data. So if I say wanted to change what I'm seeing right here, I'm really looking for a different field that is not viewed here. So for you right now, you may notice that booth numbers is not available, or is not available, is not visible on this page. To activate it or display it on the table, we're going to go ahead and click the table editor button and click on and off different options. So I don't really want their city right now, for example, but I really do want their username, or I really do want tags. The only thing to keep in mind here is that you may select a maximum of 8 fields to display at any time. Flag, ID, status, and last name and name are not things that you can check off. So it's 8 additional fields that you can choose to display depending on what stage of your application cycle you're in. And this is really helpful for actually organizing your management of artists as you go along, and making this table essentially customized to whatever you need at whatever given time period. So we're going to go ahead and save that, and the table has shifted. So now I can see the tags that I as an administrator might have put on. And just as a quick note, every single one of these pieces of information retains throughout your application cycle. So, at no point are you stuck just with the original 8 additional fields that you chose. You can always change it in the table editor, regardless of what stage you are at your application cycle or how many times you've changed it before. So now we're just going to talk a little bit about artist management. So you might notice that you have quite a few fields up here. Not everybody uses every single one, but I do want to talk about the ways that you can use these fields to manage artists, particularly at the beginning of your application cycle, so when you're accepting applications. So a lot of admins use the received status to, that's where all applications go once they've been collected, and then they'll use the reviewed status when they have reviewed applications to make sure they're meeting event information guidelines, rules and regulations, that all application questions have been answered correctly, etc., etc. So to review applicants, you're going to go ahead and click on the application ID number. And when you get here, you'll see an option to create tags. So we might say applied early. And look, see, okay, can't have any white space. So we're going to go back. Applied early, and now there's a tag that you can then manage on this artist citation page and see on the table editor as soon as you select that tag as well. So from there, you'll see any information that artists have filled out on the site. You'll see event-specific data, custom answers, as well as emails that you have sent back and forth to them and their artwork. Here at the bottom, you'll be able to change their discipline if you want, and their status. So a lot of administrators will look through this page and from there move them to reviewed if everything looks good, or possibly to incomplete if everything is not good. So the incomplete status is a pre-deadline status. So if you move an artist to incomplete from received, so let's go ahead and do that. Wherever incomplete went, there we go. And click update all to save changes. Once they're in the incomplete status, they will have the option to actually edit their application and then resubmit it, so long as your application deadline is set in the future. If your application deadline is set in the past and you still want artists to be able to edit their application, you're going to want to move them to the exception status and click update all. This will again give them the option to edit and then resubmit their application with no worries in terms of having to pay the application fee again or anything like that. So that's how you could use the incomplete and exception. The other category is another one that you can use for whatever purpose that you desire. It just is kind of what each administrator wants. It's kind of just a blank status for your use. And on the artist side, when they are placed into the other status, their application reads as received. So there are a few ways you can review applications beyond the way that I just showed you. So the first one was through that application ID and that artist citation page. And the second one is actually going to be on this admin slideshow. It's that view slideshow button right there. You can change the discipline that you're looking at while you're doing it, and this will just give you images, the large images and the thumbnails, so that you can take a look at the artwork that artist has submitted in case you have any questions specifically about like watermarks and things like that. So that is a way to do that. And then the other way to review applications is through this PDF report. Most of the time with your shows, you'll find that you have a lot of applicants, so rather than just generating automatically on this page, the PDF report will instead be sent to your email, and you can click through to there. You have a quick, up at the top here, you have, the name of the event, who it was downloaded by, and when it was downloaded, so you can keep track if you're downloading most of these, or not most, if you're downloading more than one. And again, you have contact information, answer to custom questions, you have the thumbnails, discipline, and the statement. So you're welcome to use that to review artists as well. There are also two ways you can kind of check your applications numbers. So the first one is if you're not reviewing people and you're not moving them around, you can just take a look at the received status, and whatever number is there is however many applications you received. However, if you are moving people around, then you will want to go to your event editor and go over to the product editor And then right here, you'll have a sold of quantity. So this is basically the number of applications you sold. So for this test event, we have quote unquote sold 15 applications. And well, we've sold 15 application fees, and then we've had 15 artists apply. And if you're ever curious about unique versus not unique artists, the above our table on the table editor now includes that information for each status. So we have 13 applications, but only 6 unique artists, and you can do a kind of like find duplicates in Excel or Sheets or however you want to do that if you want to find those specific artists. So once your application deadline has passed, some of our bigger reports become more useful, because you'll have all of the information. You won't have to say, oh, I have the information from these people, but not these people. So once your deadline is passed, you can download the contacts and answers CSV reports to see all of the contact information and the answers to your application questions that your artists have submitted. I actually downloaded these and put them in a sheet just so we could take a look at them today. So the contact report contains all contact information within artist profile, and you can of course sort this however you like, by receive date, by the last name of the artist, whatever works best for you. So it includes collaborator information, the artist ID, which we'll come back to, the artist message, which we will also talk about. That's part of the post booth buying phase. Internal comments are admin comments. And then it also includes any associate information, business information, their streets, their zip codes, phone numbers, email addresses. All of that is included within the contacts report. The answers report works a little bit differently. So it includes a lot of the information that is also on the contacts report, but with the addition of including information like the statement of material and technique, as well as the answers to the questions you asked on your application editor. So this is where you're going to get all of that data that we filled out at the beginning. So when you ask for social information, or how did you hear about this event, or what is your booth preference, anything like that, so long as you create a question on the application editor, you will get the results here, and you'll be able to download them and use them that way. And again, if you come here and you notice that an artist hasn't filled out the information correctly, you can always go and move them into exception and allow them to resubmit their application, and then just re-download this report to have their updated answers. The one thing I do want to talk about that I kind of went over really quickly is the artist message. It does appear on both the contacts and the answers CSV, and this is part of the when you have an artist buy an additional product, they have a notes section when they do that. So I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. So if I'm an artist and this is my ZAPP shop, I can go ahead and add a booth to my cart. I'm going to go ahead, review cart, click checkout. We're going to go ahead and say pay with check because we're not going to finish the process. And then on this final page, just before they submit payment, they have this option to add a note. And so say you forgot to ask for a booth preference, or you didn't want to ask for a booth preference on the main portion of your application, you only want to ask it of your invited artists, they can go ahead and add a note here that says, oh, I would like a booth in, location C in block 4 or something like that. Depending on how you do that, you can just kind of direct them to answer those questions however you'd like. And then that answer, as soon as it's submitted and all of that goodness happens, will be on the downloadable reports, both the answers and the contacts, and it is under artist message. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the jury reports and the data you can kind of get from your jury as you go through your application. So we're going to go to jury administration. My jury is set to in progress right now, but you can get this information whenever you like, as long as it's your current event. There is one report that doesn't work with archived events as well, but there is a backup for that. The first pre-jury report that you're going to be downloading might be the download all discipline counts report, and this report turns into, it's just basically the discipline counts you have written out. So when you chose your medium categories, each one of those will be a discipline, and then the number of artists, number of applications you have in each discipline. So this is just really useful for those shows that might have certain percentages of certain different medium categories that they want in their show, and so they want jurors to take that into consideration. Not every show does it like this, but if you are in that position, here is where you can grab that information super easily. So there's two other reports you can use for your jury. The first is this download scores report. What's cool about it is that you can choose any medium category that you'd like, and you can download just for that single medium category. It ends up looking like this. It's called the jury summary report when you download it, and it has name of the artist, discipline name, artist statement, sample description. It includes all of this information. It includes the juror, as well as the value, the juror's score in this kind of word form, and then as well as the value that's attributed to. The reason we have two of these is that some events choose to score like 7 is the lowest, 1 is the highest, and some choose 1 is the highest, 1 is the lowest, 7 is the highest. But in the system, 1 is always lowest, 7 is always highest in terms of how it calculates scores and things like that. So you have both the score given based off of how the event set it up, as well as how the system is reading that to actually apply scores. And then you have average scores, and you have any comments that jurors made as well, and all of that is in the juror summary report. You can tell we've got something hidden here, but that's just basically the status they're in, dates, more application information. A lot is given on this report for you to take a look at. You also, not on this page. So the other place you can kind of download a similar report is going to be in the view scoring history. So view scoring history is going to download exactly the same report. It just allows you to go backwards in rounds. So if you're on round 2, that first report is only downloadable for the round you're currently on. And so this report steps in and sort of closes that gap and allows you to go back around if you'd like in terms of scoring data. And once you download it, it looks exactly the same. The only difference is that you cannot sort of only download for one single medium category. Just when you get the report, you will need to sort it by that medium category, and then you can pull out different medium categories and look at it. The other thing about view scoring history is that it does retain information for archived events. So if you have a new person on your team, if you're training them, if you yourself just need a little bit of a refresher, you want to see how things were done last year, you can always go to an archived event and then go to view scoring history, and you'll be able to download this information to see what your festival's jury looked like in previous years. So now we're going to go ahead and talk more financial management, and to do this we're going to be living in the income breakdown report tab. So hopefully everybody has seen this before, but we see 4 common scenarios when it comes to the income breakdown, using the income breakdown report. The first is seeing how much revenue your event collected. The second is pulling booth purchase information. The third is reconciling remittance checks that you receive from us. And the fourth is to determine whether or not ZAPP can internally refund an artist for you. We're going to go ahead and start with verifying remittance checks. Keep in mind that remittance checks are sent out by the 5th day of the month for the previous month's revenue. So for March's revenue, the remittance checks would have been sent out by the 5th business day of April. So we're going to go ahead and set it up like we are going to verify a remittance check. So we're going to go back to March 1st. And then we're going to go ahead and go all the way to March 31st. Select all events just to kind of double check your bases, particularly with multiple events. You'll want to select all events to see everything you'll be getting. Click Run Report. And then you'll get all of this information. Now, one of the things I did kind of quickly without explaining was click this Hide All Checks button. And the reason we do that is because ZAPP does not collect any checks on behalf of your event. That money goes directly to you since it is yours, and we're not processing any checks internally for you. So you always want to make sure you're checking Hide All Checks when it comes to this particular page. just so you're sure that what you're seeing on this page is the total revenue that you've collected through ZAPP, meaning through a credit cards, and PayPal and things like that. Once you have this long list of fees collected, of income generated, you can tell for our test events, we don't typically have any money going through the site for that because they're used for testing purposes. But you'll have all of these same areas, so the total billed, credit card fees, the total collected, credit section, checks, and pending. So total billed is going to be the total amount you have collected through ZAPP. Credit card fees are then taken out of that total billed section, and then what you have collected is what you have collected through ZAPP. A thing to keep in mind here is that if you are auto deducting your licensing fees, if you have per app fees, anything like that is not going to be shown on this table. So you'll need to make sure that you're accounting for whatever app fees you may have or licensing fees that still need to be deducted. All of those fees will be listed on the remittance statement that comes with your remittance check, just so you have that information, but it is not digital on ZAPP itself. Then you have these two other sections. So credit amount you have earned from credit cards. This includes PayPal and our, basically our online payment methods. And then you have checks. These went directly to you. So if you do not check that hide all checks box, and you see that you have revenue collected from checks or you have pending revenue, you just might want to double check to make sure that you have received all the checks that artist said they were going to send you, and mark them as received in ZAPP and move them out of the awaiting payment by check status, because that's where they'll be. If you have moved them out of the awaiting payment by check status and you still have pending revenue, it's likely you just forgot to scroll down on that little drop down bar and make sure you mark the check as received, because ZAPP only knows that it's received when you have marked that. This is another place to check, though. If you are not sure if you have received a check, you might just want to see, if I never marked it to received, then it will be in pending, and if I wouldn't have marked it to received without receiving the check. So you can go ahead and verify that information on this page. So the next part of the income breakdown report that we're going to check is going to be refunds. So very similar to running this revenue report, you'll want to make sure you're on the current month, however. So to run the remittance statement check report and basically check how much revenue you got in the previous month, you'll go to the previous month. If you want to see how much revenue you have in this month, you'll want to make sure you're on this month itself. So we're going to go ahead and change that to 424. We're also going to continue to keep hide all checks. ZAPP can only refund artists with money that you have in your account, and since we do not retain any checks, we do not receive them on your behalf, we don't have that revenue to pull from. So we're going to go ahead and run report. So we can see here we have a bit more. So let's say we need to refund an artist $1. Well, it looks like we do have $1 in this account at this time, so ZAPP could refund that artist on your behalf. And you just want to basically check this collected area, because that's what we'll be checking when you send us a refund request. So the things you want to keep in mind when you're sending us a refund request are that we do not process partial refunds. We do not process refunds that are a result of an artist failing to use a coupon, and we do not process refunds for an application fee for an artist who applied multiple times. We can process refunds for application fees that are from an artist who applied only once, however. If you ever want to double check this information and you're just curious and you don't necessarily remember this part of the conversation, you can always go to our help center right there. And right here, there's a how do I refund an artist? Frequently asked question right at the top. It'll pull you down there, and then it will list all of the information you need. So the other thing to consider when you are requesting a refund is that we will need this information. So say you've verified all of the, of the revenue that you have, that it is a valid like refund. It's something we can process, i.e. it's not partial, it's not a multiple application fee, it's not a failed coupon code usage issue. So once you've done all of that and you're ready to submit a refund request, you can do that by email or through a ticket. You'll want to provide us with the application ID or the artist name, the product to be refunded, the amount to be refunded, and the reason for the refund. And we just use these to verify exactly which product and amount we're refunding for the artist. As a final sort of wrap up on the refund world, you're welcome to run the reports, check the help center, all that stuff, but you're also always welcome to email us with any questions so that if you still have any after doing this, so we can go ahead and get you an answer and get your artist refunded if we can. Now, say you just want to check like all income. You're not trying to verify a remittance check. You're not looking at all of that information. You'll just want to look at the entirety of the time you were collecting applications. So we'll just go ahead and go to, this time last year to this time this year. Go ahead and select all events, hide all checks. You wouldn't want to do like necessarily like a whole year's worth of revenue. You'd probably just want to look for your entire application period. So the day you started collecting applications to the day you stopped selling booth products will give you all the revenue that went through ZAPP. So we'll want to run report, and you'll get probably quite a long report of data that you can take a look at, and you can come down here and you'll see all of this information. That you have revenue you've collected, credit cards, checks, all of that information. So when you're running something like that, you might be interested in some of our other boxes. So I still kept on hide all checks just because I wanted to see the revenue that went specifically through ZAPP. But if I wanted to look at everything, then I would not check that box. And now we can see that I do have checks and checks in pending, all of that information. All the way back up at the top, you'll see a few other options. So again, if you want to see just check payments to make sure that you know how much money you've received from checks, you can hide credit cards. If you don't want to worry about artists who had coupon codes, you can hide all discounts. And if you don't want to see any $0 transactions, you can hide those as well, just to make the table a little bit easier to read. So once you have run that report, say you want to keep it for a variety of reasons, you may want to download it. So we do have this option down here to download the results. The other thing I want to mention is if you know you want to download it right away, you might just want to display downloads only, because that'll just give you the option to download it and it won't take the time to load the table. So the nice thing about the income breakdown report is that not only does it include all the information, but it includes specific purchase time dates. So, the exact time that it was paid. There's a date as well over there. Purchase date, you don't need to worry about some of these ID things, but the artist ID can be used to merge the report with, say, the contacts or the answers report, which we can talk about in a little bit. But the other thing I want to say is it just gives all of the additional information you might be curious about, including, the amount you collected, coupons used, transaction IDs, card types, all of that information is on the income breakdown report. And then once you have the artist ID right here, you can then merge this report with either the contacts or the answers CSV. If you want something like booth numbers to be something that you want to integrate into this, or you want to pull some information from one of those other reports, say you asked a question about booth preference, that would be on the answers report. You might want to merge that into this report if you're giving preference based off of time of purchase or something like that. So you'll merge them by using the artist ID to match them up, and then you can go ahead and enter in that column. And that's just the easiest way, to me at least, that you can integrate these two reports and use them if you're working on booth assignments and things like that. They're basically the booth and the waitlist numbers, so those are both downloadable. They download in both the context and the answers report. However, you can easily enter them into the spreadsheet and edit as you go, and then as a last step, enter them in ZAPP for artists to see. So the cool thing about booth reports, so first you're actually going to need your artist to be in the accepted or confirmed status so that the booth numbers will show up as an option for you to edit. So you can go ahead and put any of those in, and then as soon as you do that and you click update all, That information will save in the system. You can then download it in, contacts in the answers or contacts report. But the other cool thing is that artists can see the booth numbers in their My ZAPPlications, which just allows them to make sure that they get to, they get to keep all of their booth information, waitlist information in one place. So here we have 2 booth numbers and we have a waitlist number. Just to double check to make sure that they will actually see, there are a few things you'll need to check. So first, that you've entered in a booth number and they're in the accepted or confirmed status. The second thing will be that on this event information page down here at the bottom, show booth assignments to artists needs to be active, and show waitlist numbers to artists needs to be active as soon as you're ready to show them that information. If you are going through ZAPP and you're changing booth assignments and changing waitlist assignments as you go, you might want to keep these as disabled until you're ready to activate them and for everybody to know. So just to wrap up, ZAPP does store all of this data for you. So as long as you use ZAPP, you have access to data from previous years within your archived events. To get to your archived events, they're on that main page when you get in. When you're in the events management, archived events are here. You can also see them on the jury administration page, and you can just kind of hit this little bar and you'll see all of the events that have ever been on ZAPP. Many of these reports transfer over year to year, so answers, the answers report, the income breakdown, the contacts report, the view scoring history report will continue to exist year after year. So you're always welcome to use this data for training, for refresher information. You can use the contacts that you receive in your contacts CSV for promotional purposes to your artists when it's time for them to apply to the event the next year. And once you have done all of that and you've reviewed everything, you've downloaded everything, you've had your festival, and then you're ready to start again next year, and you can start managing your artists and income all again.